So this next gentleman coming to the stage, he is a humorist, he is a storyteller, he just opened for David Sedaris. I hear him all the time and love him on satellite radio. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the fabulous Dylan Brody.
In lieu of comedy tonight, I would like to present excellent mic technique. Hello, how are you? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of my target demographic. Those of you who are familiar with my work, and really who isn't, will be aware that many of my stories can be long and heavy and multi-textured shades of gray like the rounded proboscis of the ponderous pachyderm. Each of the pieces I will present this evening, by contrast and yet to maintain that mammalian metaphor, is little more than a bit or two of gerbil fuzz, a beat or two of verbal jazz. Each a twist of the wit, a trick of the tongue, a tantalizing taste of linguistic terpsichore. Call it a pithy parcel of prosodic prestidigitation, if you will. And if you won't, you're a bunch of anti-Semitic bastards. Those of you who laughed, explain it to those who didn't. I can wait. This first piece is called I Like to Support the Arts. On my way home from a gig, I stopped at a convenience store to buy milk for my morning coffee, ice cream for my wife. As I crossed from the car to the store, I was approached by an unemployed magician. He had the haunted eyes of a hunting hound. He said, I got a quarter in my pocket, I can make it disappear. I got a quarter in my pocket, I can make it disappear. I said, show me. I swear to you, ladies and gentlemen, all he did was snap his fingers. He said, it's gone. I said, where did it go? He said, check your pocket. I checked my pocket, and sure enough, there, amongst all my other loose change, a bright, shiny quarter. I said, how do I know this is yours? He said, check the date. I checked the date. I said, it's from 1994. He said, that is mine. I returned it to him. I said, that's amazing. Do it again. He said, I never repeat myself. I never repeat myself. I said, show me another. He said, I will need a $10 bill. I said, all I have is a 20. He said, that will do. I handed him a $20 bill. He folded it up right in front of me. No alakadabra, no abracazam. When he unfolded it, it was a 5. He returned it to me. I said, that's amazing. Change it back. He said, if I could change 5s into 20s, I wouldn't be out here working for tips. I said, I'm sorry, I didn't know I was supposed to tip you. I gave him the 5. I went into the convenience store, I bought milk for my morning coffee, I bought ice cream for my wife. As I crossed from the store to my car, the unemployed magician approached another man in the parking lot. He said, I got a quarter in my pocket, I can make it disappear. I got a quarter in my pocket, I can make it disappear. I watched him with the hungry eyes of a hunting hawk, and I swear to you, ladies and gentlemen, all he did was snap his fingers. You are everything I could have hoped for when I drove to Tahunga. It's true, I opened for David Sedaris like 2 months ago. Opened David Sedaris, Pastor in the Civic Center, 3,000 people in a huge theater with the paintings on the ceiling and the glory. And I got on the phone to my manager and I said, what can you get me at like an ElksClub in Tahunga? I live in Silmar. I live at the confluence of the mighty 118 and the majestic 210. It's not a crap neighborhood, but it is crap neighborhood adjacent. And I live there in a townhouse with my two dogs, Sir Corwin, the beautiful dog-faced dog, Brody of Silmar, and Lord Buckley, sweetless, greatest of all Danemuts, the dinosaur-slaying dog, and my lovely wife, whose name escapes me at the moment. And we live in a townhouse, so we don't have a lawn in the complex. I have to walk the dogs beyond the townhouse complex where our neighbors have actual houses with actual lawns. And both of my dogs have a particular favorite lawn that they've loved for a long time. And recently, Lord Buckley asked for his early afternoon walk, and I took him out, and he led me directly to his favorite lawn. And apparently, someone has recently purchased the house behind the favorite lawn. So the man came out of the house and said, "That's my lawn." So glad he left. Did you guys feel the way he was bringing down the energy in the whole room? He's been pissing me off since Feldman was on it. The guy came out of his house and said, "That's my lawn." Now, I do not like the passive-aggressive guess my intent game. Moreover, my dogs have loved that lawn far longer than he has owned that house. So precedent has been set. We have, as it were, squatters' rights. So rather than engaging him directly, I smiled at him and said, "That's my dog." He repeated, "That's my lawn." I repeated, "That's my dog." He stepped forward toward me and said more slowly and more loudly and more angrily, "That's my lawn." I thought about reasserting ownership of the dog, but I was afraid he was going to begin to think that there was actually something wrong with me. So I took a different tack. And for the record, tack is the correct word. It's an idiomatic sailing term. It refers to a technique whereby the sail can be set so that one can navigate in directions that are not directly parallel to the prevailing wind. If you've been saying take a different tact, people like me have been judging you harshly. In any case, I decided to go a different way. I said, "I'm sorry, I don't speak English." No, seriously. I don't speak any English. He said, "Well, what? We're speaking English right now." I said, "I realize this can be confusing. I've learned several words phonetically. I'm told I have a pretty good ear for accents. The result is that I can create an illusion of fluency. Conversationalism, even. But the fact of the matter is, I have no idea what either of us have been saying throughout this entire conversation." As I offered up this little diatribe, Lord Buckley Sweetlips, greatest of all Danemuts, the dinosaur-slaying dog, hunched up like a tiny kangaroo and relieved himself on the man's lawn. I collected the excrement in a plastic bag because I'm a decent neighbor, held it out to the man, and said, "If you want this, I won't have it bronzed." He pointed vaguely toward his trash can, and I said, "Oh, I'll just throw it out in your trash over here then." And as though he had won something in this exchange, he raised a finger toward me and said, "I knew you spoke English. I knew it, I knew it, I knew it." I matched his tone, his inflection, and his gesture, and listed English words that should be Yiddish but aren't. Moistenfeld, kitchen hassle, spatula, spatula, spatula. Threw out the bag and went home. About 2 hours later, Sir Corwin, the beautiful dog-faced dog, Brody of Silmar, asked for his afternoon walk and led me directly to his favorite lawn. The man saw a different dog. Corwin, I should explain, is a striking beast of a dog. His father was a Neapolitan Mastiff, and his mother was, we believe, the world's most satisfied pug. The man emerged from his house, realized I was the same guy, and froze in his tracks. I greeted him like we were old friends, grinned, pointed, and said, "That's my dog." He said, "There is really something wrong with you." And signed everything was out. Apparently, I should have just let him think that to begin with. When I was in my early 20s, I was a victim of the world's stupidest mugging. Ronald Reagan was president, though he did not know it at the time. I got to hear my sister speak at Columbia University in New York City. Ronald Reagan, you may remember, and I don't mean to imply that you are all too young to remember, just looking at this room, I think there may be memory issues. Sorry, I've seen people on roller skates looking for their car keys. There might be issues. You just wrote that. That might be the best joke I've written all week. So, as you may or may not recall, Reagan had a welfare reform proposal that was based on the concept that the best way to discourage people from being poor was to take away their money. And my sister took this very personally. I should explain. My sister is gay. I love her like a brother. And she is a single mom who was briefly on government decision. She has a beautiful daughter who was deliberately conceived in a loving act between my sister and a turkey baster. Just one of the reasons I will not be Thanksgiving dinner at my sister's place. Now, she is not a slacker or a drain on society, but she was briefly on government assistance because she'd been fired from her job as a bartender when they found her breastfeeding her infant in a back room on a break. Understand, this is an establishment that proudly displays posters of the Coors Girls. Because we live in a bizarre society where it's okay to use breasts to sell beer, but not to children. So I got to hear my sister speak at Columbia, and then I left to walk across town to get a bus back. And this left me farther north on the island of Manhattan than any young middle-class white man has any right to be, as it was nearing midnight in January. I was waiting for a bus, sitting on the bench, very cold, my breath steamed in the night air. And a large African-American man came out of the building behind me. And, well, it was the mid-'80s, so it was still a big black guy. Sat down next to me. And we sat together with our breaths steaming in the night air, waiting for the bus. And after about 5 minutes, he said, "Give me all your money." And I said, "What?" And he said, "I'm mugging you." And I said, "Well, do you have a knife or something?" Like, now we're playing Let's Make a Deal. Can you show me a hard-boiled egg? He said, "If you want, I could go and get a knife." I did not want that. So I gave him the $6 that I had in my pocket. And then we sat together waiting for the bus. Steaming in the night air until I realized there was a problem. And I said, "Well, now I can't get on the bus." And he said, "Oh, sorry," and handed back $1. Which was at the time the cost of a bus ride in Manhattan, and I took the $1. And I said, "Thank you." speeding in the night air. And after a while, the bus came. And I got on, I put my dollar in the machine. I thought I was saying to the lady driving, hey, this guy just mugged me. But now he had taken $5, so it felt less like reporting a crime than telling on a guy. So I just put my money in and sat down, and he put $1 in, sat a few rows behind me. And after we got a few blocks, he tapped me on the shoulder, and I said, what? And he held out 2 of the remaining $4 and said, why don't you take half of this money back? You really always ought to have some cash on you. That seems sensible. So I took the $2 and said, thank you. My mugger kind of rode on. And after a few more blocks, he rang the bell. Pulled the he rang the bell, that's right. He was warning us about the British coming. He pulled the cord that rings the bell to tell the driver we were going to pull over for his stop. And as we were pulling over, he tapped me on the shoulder again. I said, what? And he held out the last $2 sort of sheepishly and said, why don't you just take the rest of this back? I really just needed bus fare. And it dawned on me that we live in a bizarre society where it's less humiliating to be a criminal than a little short-eyed cat. But now I felt like I bonded with my mugger, so I pushed it back into his hand and said, well, what a gang out of that, you really always ought to have some cash on you. And he thanked me and got off the bus. Apparently the bus driver caught the tail end of this conversation, and apparently she was a Reagan Republican, because as we pulled away, she said, you know, you really shouldn't give them poor people money. That only encourages them. To close my set this evening, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to do the very piece that David Sedaris requested I do to open for him. It is a lovely story of which I am quite proud. It is called, If There Were Swans, It Would Be a Lamentation. One of my favorite things about John Darnielle is that even when he performs alone with none of his musical colleagues, he goes on stage and says, hi, we are the Mountain Goats. I am not a music critic. But I love John Darnielle, and recently my playlist had cycled around to his song, Slow West Vultures. And I pushed the button on my steering wheel that turned off the music and answered the phone, even though I have caller ID and could see that it was my mother. After the conversation had gone on longer than I was comfortable with, which is to say, we had exchanged greetings and we're still on the phone. She said, I hope I'm not interrupting anything. I said, no, you're not. I was just listening to the Mountain Goats. She said, oh, I thought you were in your car. I said, I am in my car. She said, why are there Mountain Goats in your car? I said, it's a recording, Mom. She said, isn't that a riot while you're driving around? And then, I don't get that new age thing where people listen to a recording of nature sounds, of water, whatever. I said, no, Mom, it's a band. She said, honey, I'm pretty sure if it's whales, it's a pod. She said it with that tone of condescension and forced patience with which she corrected me on my pronunciation of the word shoulders when I was 4. I said, not the whales, Mom, the Mountain Goats. She said, that would be a herd, dear. Tone again. I gripped my steering wheel and I listened to my breath. And I imagined a bird carrying my anger toward a distant horizon. My therapist has advised me to do when I talk to my mother. I said, no, Mom, the Mountain Goats are a band. They play musical instruments and sing post-grunge, humanist folk rock. She said, oh, that sounds really interesting. I would like to hear that. I said, I could send you a disc. She said, please don't. I wouldn't enjoy it. I was just being polite. And then, do they even know what it's about? I said, who? She said, the mountain goat. Can they even know what they're singing? I said, Mom, do you genuinely believe that what we're discussing right now is actually a group of mountain goats that have been trained to play musical instruments and sing post-grunge humanist folk rock? She said, oh, Dylan, you're just like your father. It's always subtext. I squeezed my steering wheel and I listened to my breath. And she could hear the tension over the phone because in truth I am just like my father and it is always subtext. She said, are you okay? Where did you go just then? I said, I'm fine, Mom. I was just imagining a whole flock of crows headed for the distant horizon. And she said, you're thinking of a murder, dear. And I said, yes.